Picture this. You've just landed in London. You are completely exhausted from like a 12-hour flight. Your suitcase feels like it weighs 100 pounds, and you're standing in front of this electronic crane ticket machine.
Oh, yeah. The classic, welcome to a new country.
Right. And there's this line of very impatient, very fast-walking commuters just glaring at the back of your head. You look at the screen. It is in English, but the buttons make absolutely no sense.
They never do. They're so complicated.
Exactly. And suddenly, that cold rush of panic completely takes over. Your mind goes totally blank. You just cannot remember a single vocabulary word you studied.
It's the ultimate traveler's nightmare. I mean, it's a situation that almost every language learner finds themselves in at some point. It is so common.
It really is. So today, we're going to completely dismantle that anxiety for you. We are doing a deep dive into a really fascinating transcript from an English learning show called Barking English.
Yeah, hosted by Zoe and Oliver. Great show.
Really great. And their entire philosophy, like their main motto, is English you can understand even while lying down.
I absolutely love that.
Right. And our mission today is to take their insights and give you, the listener, the absolute confidence to navigate what they call the public transportation jungle.
Whether you're in London, New York, Sydney, anywhere, really.
Exactly. So you can get around without ever feeling that sudden rush of panic again.
You know, I really appreciate that motto from the source. English you can understand even while lying down. It suggests that language acquisition doesn't always require you to be, like, hunched over a heavy grammar textbook.
Grinding through those endless memorization exercises.
Right, exactly. Often you learn best when your brain is just relaxed, when you're just absorbing a natural conversation and letting the context do the heavy lifting for you.
And because this deep dive is specifically tailored for you, the listener, to process English comfortably, we're actually going to do something a little different today. We're doing a pacing and accessibility check right now.
Okay, let's do it.
We are going to consciously keep our speaking pace moderate, very relaxed. We are going to actively avoid dropping, confusing academic jargon into the conversation.
Which is so important when you're trying to actually internalize a language.
Yeah. And when we do hit a complex linguistic concept, and we definitely will today, we're going to unpack it simply, clearly, and slowly.
So if you're listening to us right now on your own commute, just, look out the window, relax, and let the concepts wash over you.
It's the perfect environment for it. Language is ultimately about navigating the world around you, so studying it while you're actually moving through the world, it just makes perfect sense.
It really does.
Okay, let's unpack this. Every transit journey begins long before you actually step onto a bus or a train. We have to start where the panic usually starts.
The financial transaction.
Yes, paying for the ride.
The kiosk. I mean, it is the very first barrier to entry in any new city.
The source material uses a great metaphor here. It says, landing in a new city is thrilling, but the transit system itself is a jungle. And the hardest part of that jungle isn't necessarily reading the map.
No, the map you can usually figure out.
Right. The absolute hardest part is figuring out the ticket kiosk because the physical interface is completely different in every single city. But here is where I want to push back a little bit on what the source suggests.
Oh, okay, let's hear it.
If I am that panicked tourist, right, I'm standing at a machine in New York and my English completely escapes me. Why can't I just look at the station worker, point at the machine, and say, ticket? How?
I mean...
Like, it's not elegant, obviously, but it is efficient. The worker knows I want a ticket. They know I need help. Why is that considered a problem?
That is a very valid pushback. And it actually gets to the very heart of how language functions socially.
Okay.
Functionally, yes.
Yeah.
Pointing and saying, ticket. How?
We'll probably get a ticket placed into your hand. The worker will deduce your problem based on the context.
Right, because I'm standing there looking helpless. Exactly. However, relying on that strategy creates what we call social friction.
Social friction. Okay, break that down for me. If they understand me, where is the friction coming from?
Well, think about the cultural psychology of English-speaking countries, particularly in these really busy urban environments. Politeness and indirectness are basically the social glue that keeps these stressful environments functioning smoothly.
Ah, I see.
So when you use single-word demands like ticket, how, accompanied by aggressively pointing at a machine.
Which feels natural when you're stressed.
It does, but it strips away all of the social softening that native speakers expect to hear. Even if you are just panicking, to the local worker, it can sound really abrupt.
Like a command.
Right. Transactional, and honestly a little rude. It puts them on the defensive immediately. You're treating them like another machine rather than a human being who is doing you a favor by helping you.
That makes a lot of sense. So it's not about the grammar being wrong, really. It's about the social tone being completely mismatched for the situation.
Precisely. The source recommends much smoother, natural alternatives that immediately remove that awkwardness. It changes the dynamic from a demand to a polite request for assistance.
And what's the first phrase they recommend?
The first one is, "Excuse me, how do I pay for the bus here?"
Okay, let's look at the first two words of that sentence because they are doing so much heavy lifting. Excuse me.
Yes.
Why is that specific phrase so critical in an English-speaking environment?
"Excuse me" is basically the golden key of social interaction in English. When you say "excuse me," you are fundamentally saying to the other person, "I recognize that I am interrupting your day, and I apologize for taking up your time."
It's like a preemptive apology.
Exactly. By offering that tiny piece of respect right up front, the person you are talking to instantly lowers their guard.
Because you've shown you respect their space.
Right. They are much more willing to help a polite stranger who respects their time than someone who just walks up and starts barking demands at them.
It's like a verbal knock on the door before you enter a room. So you say, "Excuse me, how do I pay for the bus here?" You're not asking for a ticket. You're asking for the process.
Yes. How do I perform this action?
And the source gives us a second variation, which I think is incredibly useful. They suggest asking, "Do I need to buy a ticket beforehand?"
Oh, that word beforehand is vital.
It really is. Beforehand simply means, in advance of the action.
Right, because in many cities, the rules change depending on what vehicle you're getting on.
Exactly. On some buses, you literally just hand cash directly to the driver as you step on. But on other buses, if you try to hand cash to the driver, they will actively yell at you to get off.
Because you're supposed to buy a paper ticket at a machine beforehand.
Right. So by asking this question, you're showing the local that you are actively trying to respect their specific city rules.
You're showing them you want to play by their rules, you just don't know the rules yet.
Exactly. Now, what's fascinating here is how the specific vocabulary we use to talk about paying for transit, it completely shifts depending on where your airplane landed.
The geography of English is so interesting here.
It is. The core human need is exactly the same, right?
Yeah.
Putting digital money onto a piece of plastic. But the verbs change completely. Let's start with the United Kingdom and Australia.
Okay, right. So in London, for example, the transit card is famously called the Oyster card.
Right.
And when the money on your Oyster card runs out, the physical action you need to take is described by the phrase, "top up."
Top up. So you would walk up to the counter, say, "Excuse me," and then say, "I need to top up my card."
Exactly.
I've always loved this phrase, but where does it actually come from?
It's deeply embedded in British culture.
Yeah.
And it actually originates from liquids.
Liquids.
Yeah. Think of being in a British pub or sitting at a dining table. If your glass of water or your cup of tea is half empty, someone might pour more liquid into it till it reaches the top of the glass.
Yeah.
They are topping it up. So the British took that physical concept of liquid in a glass and applied it to the invisible digital currency on a transit card.
That is amazing.
Right. Your funds are low, so you pour more money in to bring the balance back up to the top. You top it up.
That is such a vivid way to remember it. Your card is a cup, and you are filling it with money. "Excuse me, I need to top up my card."
It works perfectly there.
But if you get on a plane in London and fly across the Atlantic Ocean to New York City, that phrase suddenly stops working entirely, doesn't it?
Oh, completely.
Like if you walk into a subway station in Manhattan and say, "I need to top up my card," you are going to get a very confused look from the person behind the glass.
You absolutely will. The visual metaphor changes completely in the United States. Americans generally do not use the phrase "top up" in any context.
So what do they use?
Well, in New York, the famous card is the MetroCard, or they have their new digital system called OMNY. The formal phrasing you will see on the machines and hear from the workers is "add value."
Add value. Now, I can imagine an English learner being very confused by that.
Oh, absolutely.
Because value is such an abstract concept. We talk about like personal values or the value of a good education. Why are Americans using this philosophical word for a train ticket?
What's fascinating here is it really speaks to the highly transactional, business-oriented nature of American English.
Okay, how so?
In this context, value strictly means purchasing power or monetary worth. You're adding worth to a piece of plastic, so you would ask, "Can I add value to this card here?"
But honestly, as the source points out, native speakers on the street in America don't usually say add value, do they?
No, they often default to something much more blunt and literal.
Yes, the source notes that an American is much more likely to just say put money on,
Right.
as in I need to put $20 on my card, and bucks being the very common American slang for dollars.
Yes, very common.
I need to put $20 on my card. It is so direct. There's no liquid metaphor. There is no abstract concept of value. Just put the money onto the plastic.
And this is a profound realization for you as a language learner.
Why is that?
Because fluency isn't just knowing the dictionary translation of a word. It's understanding the cultural flavor of the region you are in. When you adapt to saying top up in London and put money on in New York, you are signaling to the locals that you are paying attention to their world.
You're speaking their specific version of the language.
Exactly.
Okay, so you have successfully navigated the kiosk. Your card is topped up or it has value added to it. You walk away from the machine, you walk toward the platforms, and congratulations, you have just walked into an entirely new type of panic.
Oh, yes. We are moving from financial anxiety to navigational anxiety.
The platform panic.
This is where your spatial awareness is tested while you're basically being assaulted by sensory overload.
It's intense. You're underground. It is incredibly loud. There are flashing digital signs everywhere. People are running past you.
There are multiple tracks going in totally different directions. And you have to figure out where to put your physical body.
It is overwhelming. And the source material shares a very funny, very relatable story from Zoe about her early days in London.
I love this story.
So she was trying to take the London Underground, the tube, for the first time. She stood in front of this giant map on the wall. She looked at the map, she looked at the trains, and she realized she had absolutely no idea which way the train was going.
Complete confusion.
Right. But because she was too nervous to ask a stranger for help, she just guessed.
Never guess.
Never guess. Because she guessed, she ended up sitting on a train going 3 stops in the exact opposite direction of her destination.
We call that the rite of passage.
A rite of passage.
Yeah, a rite of passage is an experience, often a slightly painful or embarrassing one, that everyone must go through before they can call themselves a true member of a group.
So true.
If you have never gotten totally lost on a foreign subway system because you were too shy to ask a question, you have not truly experienced international travel.
We have all been there, staring at our shoes on a train, slowly realizing the station names outside the window are the wrong ones.
It's the worst feeling.
But let's look at why Zoe was too nervous to ask in the first place. If you look at a traditional standard English textbook, it gives you a very specific way to ask for directions on a platform.
Right.
A textbook will tell you to walk up to someone and say, "Is this the correct train for Central Station?"
Grammatically, that is a flawless English sentence.
Right, so why shouldn't a learner just memorize that textbook phrase?
Well, grammatically, yes, it has perfect subject-verb agreement, it has excellent vocabulary, but contextually, it is heavy and it is slow.
Slow is bad on a transit platform.
Very bad. If we connect this to the bigger picture of how humans communicate in stressful environments, we see a massive difference between textbook English and street English.
I like to use this analogy. Standing on a crowded subway platform and loudly enunciating, "Is this the correct train for Central Station?"
It's like showing up to a relaxed beach party wearing a formal 3-piece tuxedo.
That is a perfect analogy. Right. The tuxedo is a beautiful piece of clothing. It is tailored perfectly. But it is completely inappropriate for the environment. It makes everyone around you uncomfortable because it just doesn't fit the vibe.
That is exactly it. You are overdressed linguistically.
Linguistically overdressed. I love that.
In a transit environment, native speakers prioritize 2 things above all else: speed and brevity. Time is the most valuable currency on a train platform.
Everybody is rushing.
Exactly. The person you were talking to is likely stressed. They're holding a cup of coffee, they're trying to listen for an announcement, and they're calculating how late they are for work. They literally do not have the cognitive bandwidth to process a long, formal sentence.
So how do native speakers actually ask that question? How do we take off the tuxedo and put on a t-shirt?
Native speakers remove all the unnecessary formal words. They will literally point a finger at the physical train sitting on the tracks and ask a very short, sharp question. Does this go to Central Station?
Does this go to Central Station?
Or they will ask, is this the right train for downtown?
Let's look at the difference there. Does this go to Central Station? Versus, is this the correct train for Central Station? The native version uses shorter words, it drops the formal adjective correct, and it gets straight to the verb go.
And by making it shorter, you are actually making it significantly easier for the stranger to help you.
Because they don't have to think as much.
Right. It requires almost zero mental energy for them to hear, does this go to Central Station?
Yeah.
And just nod their head, yes or no. You are respecting their time by being brief.
That makes a lot of sense.
And for you, the learner, this is fantastic news. It means you do not have to memorize long, complicated sentences. The easier, shorter sentence is actually the most authentic one.
That is such a relief. Okay, let's keep moving through our journey. You asked the short question, you got the nod, you stepped onto the train, and the doors closed behind you. You are on the move. But now, you are trapped inside a metal tube with 100 other people. How do we handle the human elements of the carriage? I'm talking about the crowds, the delays, and those terrifying announcements over the loudspeaker.
Surviving the carriage requires a completely different set of vocabulary.
Why is that?
Because the rules of engagement change. You are no longer asking for directions. You are negotiating physical space.
Okay, let's start with the most uncomfortable part. The crowds.
It can be rough.
If you are on a train during busy hours, you are going to experience claustrophobia. People are packed in so tightly that your shoulders are touching strangers. You're holding onto a metal pole, totally boxed in.
And the source has a very explicit warning about this exact moment.
They do. They beg the listener, please, no matter how panicked you are about missing your stop, do not just physically shove people out of your way.
Which, in many transit cultures around the world, physical pushing is somewhat normalized.
Right. It's just how you navigate a crowd.
Exactly. It's not seen as hostile. But in English-speaking cultures, the UK, the US, Australia, Canada, aggressively shoving someone with your hands or shoulders is considered a severe violation of social norms.
You will make people very angry.
Very angry. Even if the train is packed like sardines, there is a strict expectation that you must respect the illusion of personal space. And you manage that space entirely with your words, never with your hands.
So how do I move my physical body through a solid wall of humans using only my voice?
It depends entirely on how much time you have.
Okay.
If you know your stop is coming up in, say, 2 minutes, and you have time to slowly navigate, you use a full, polite sentence. You tap someone gently on the shoulder and say, "Excuse me, I need to get off at the next stop."
Excuse me, I need to get off at the next stop. That gives the crowd time to process your request.
Right. They hear your intention, and they will start doing this little dance, twisting their shoulders and sucking in their stomachs to create a tiny path for you.
But what if I don't have 2 minutes? What if I was, looking at my phone, the train stops, the doors open, and I suddenly realize, oh no, this is my stop, and the doors are going to close in 10 seconds.
Panic mode.
Pure panic. I don't have time for a full, polite sentence.
When panic sets in and time is short, you need a phrase that is urgent but still maintains manners. The source provides the perfect phrase to shout clearly into the crowd.
What is it?
Getting off, please.
Getting off, please.
Let's analyze the grammar of that because something is definitely missing.
Yes. It is a grammatically incomplete sentence. The full sentence would be, I am getting off the train.
But in an emergency, native speakers drop the pronoun and the auxiliary verb entirely.
Exactly. You drop I am, you strip the sentence down to the absolute most critical piece of information. The action itself, getting off.
But the genius of the phrase is the second half. Please.
Yeah. Yes. The please is the shock absorber.
The shock absorber, I like that. If you just yell getting off, it sounds aggressive, like a command. You're barking at people. By tacking please onto the end, it transforms from a demand into a desperate but polite plea. Getting off, please.
And when a crowd hears that, they instantly understand your urgency.
They respect the please, and they will part like the Red Sea to let you through.
That is such a powerful tool to have. Now, what if you are the opposite of panicked? What if you actually manage to get a seat? You are sitting comfortably, but you're nervous because you cannot see the signs out the window, and you are terrified of missing your stop.
The source suggests a very gentle strategy here. You leverage the community around you.
How so?
You can turn to the person sitting next to you and ask them to essentially act as your human alarm clock. You just ask, could you tell me when we get to the museum?
That's so simple.
It is. And people are remarkably kind in these situations. They will usually go back to reading their book, and then 5 stops later, they'll tap your knee and say, hey, your stop is next.
It removes all the mental burden of tracking the journey yourself.
It really does. But, as we all know, public transport does not always go smoothly.
Understatement of the year.
Eventually, no matter what city you are in, you are going to experience the great equalizer.
The delay.
The delay. The train comes to a screeching halt in the middle of a dark tunnel, the lights flicker, and you just sit there in total silence.
It is a universally miserable feeling. You're just trapped. But the source material completely flips the scenario. They argue that being stuck on a delayed train is actually a massive opportunity for a language learner.
They make a great point here.
How so? Why is a delay an opportunity?
Because a delay creates a shared psychology of frustration. When the train stops in a tunnel, all the normal social rules of ignoring the people around you suddenly evaporate.
Because everyone is in the exact same annoying situation.
Exactly. It creates a temporary bond. Because the social pressure is lowered, it is the perfect low-stakes environment for you to practice making small talk in English.
That's brilliant. You don't have to talk about politics or philosophy. You just have to complain about the train.
Precisely. Complaining about transit is the universal language.
It really is.
If you are feeling brave, you can turn to the person sighing heavily next to you and deploy a very natural phrase. You could ask, "Do you know if the trains are running late?"
Do you know if the trains are running late? Or if you're standing on a platform waiting for a train that hasn't shown up, you can ask someone, have you been waiting long?
Yes, that's a great one.
I want to highlight the real purpose of asking, have you been waiting long? You are not asking for a mathematically precise data point.
No, not at all.
You don't need them to say, yes, I have been here for 14 minutes and 32 seconds. You are just throwing out a conversational hook. You are inviting them to vent their frustration with you.
It's an invitation to connect. They might just roll their eyes and say, yeah, I've been standing here forever. This city's transit is a joke. And suddenly you are participating in a real, unscripted English conversation with a local.
Which naturally leads us to the most chaotic part of any delay. You're chatting with the person next to you, and suddenly the speaker system clicks on.
Oh boy.
A voice booms through the carriage to explain why you are stopped. But, as Zoe points out in the source material, it never sounds like clear English. It always sounds like mumble, 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 delayed, mumble, mumble.
The distorted loudspeaker announcement is a global phenomenon.
Why is it always so bad?
The acoustics in train stations are terrible, the microphones are usually decades old, and the conductors speak way too quickly. It is vital for learners to know this. Even native speakers usually have no idea what those announcements say.
So it's not just me.
It is not just you. Do not feel bad about your English comprehension skills if you cannot understand a train conductor over a loudspeaker.
So when the announcement ends and everyone in the train carriage collectively groans, what do you say to find out what just happened?
The source gives us a great lifeline phrase. You turn to your neighbor and ask, "Sorry, did you catch what they said?"
Let's examine the verb catch in that context. Did you catch what they said?
Right. Obviously, we are not talking about baseball. We are not physically catching a ball with our hands.
No, what are we catching?
In this idiom, words are treated as physical objects moving rapidly through the air. To catch the words means your ears successfully grab them out of the noise and your brain processed them.
Oh, I see.
If you didn't catch it, it means the words flew past you too quickly to understand. It is a very casual, very native way to say, I did not understand.
Did you catch what they said? And the beauty of this phrase is that you are not blaming your lack of English skills. You are blaming the terrible speakers.
Exactly. It puts you and the native speaker on the exact same team. They will probably reply, no, I didn't catch it either. Sounded like a signal failure.
The alternative lifeline phrase provided is simply, what was that announcement about?
Again, it's casual, it's polite, and it assumes that the other person might have magically translated the mumbles.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. To confidently pull off everything we just discussed, navigating the kiosk, moving through the crowds, chatting during a delay, you need a rock-solid foundation.
You need the right tools.
Yes. And the Barking English source introduces a concept I absolutely adore. They call them pocket words.
The concept of a pocket word is a brilliant visualization tool for memory.
Explain the concept for us. What makes a word a pocket word?
Think about the physical items you check before you leave your house in the morning. Phone, keys, wallet. You put them in your pockets because they're essential survival tools for your day. You wouldn't leave home without them.
Right.
A pocket word is the vocabulary equivalent. It is a word so essential to the specific environment you are entering, in this case, the transit jungle, that you need to mentally put it in your pocket. You need quick, easy access to it at all times.
I love that. We are going to do a deep dive into the 5 core pocket words provided by the source. We'll explore their mechanics, their history, and how to use them, drawing directly from Zoe and Oliver's examples.
Let's do it.
Pocket word number 1 is
Commute.
commute is arguably the most important word in urban English. It is fascinating because it functions heavily as both a noun and a verb, and its meaning is highly specific. If I look up the origin of the word commute, it actually comes from the Latin word commutare, which means to change or to exchange. How did a word about changing turn into a word about riding a bus?
It has a historical origin. In the 19th century in America, when railways were first built, workers would buy a commutation ticket.
A commutation ticket?
Yes, this was a special ticket that allowed them to pay a lower changed price, a discounted price, because they traveled the exact same route every single day.
Oh, that makes sense.
Eventually, the people holding those tickets became known as commuters, and the journey itself became the commute. Today, it specifically refers to the regular routine journey you made between your home and your place of work or study.
Okay, so my trip to the grocery store on a Saturday is not a commute.
No,
My flight to Hawaii for vacation is not a commute.
definitely not. It implies the daily grind, the repetitive, mandatory travel of daily life.
The source gives a great example of using it as a noun. Imagine 2 colleagues standing by the coffee machine at an office. One asks, "How's your commute to the new office?" And the other replies, "It's not bad. The commute is only about 30 minutes on the subway." Here, they were talking about the commute as a physical thing, a block of time.
But you can flip it and use it as an action, a verb. You could ask someone, "How do you commute?" And they might answer, "I commute by train." It is the ultimate pocket word because asking a local about their commute is the safest, most common form of small talk in any major city. It is a shared experience.
Excellent. Let's move to pocket word number 2, which is actually a 2-part mechanical phrase. Tap in, tap out.
This vocabulary is relatively new in the grand scheme of the English language. It evolved directly alongside modern technology.
Decades ago, you would hand a paper ticket to a conductor and they would punch a hole in it. But now we use plastic cards with microchips inside them, or we just use our smartphones. And the language had to adapt to that physical action.
When you walk up to the security gate at a train station, there is a flat, glowing card reader. You take your plastic card and you physically lightly hit it against the reader.
Right.
That light physical hit is a tap. Because you are entering the system, you tap in.
And when I leave?
When you reach your final destination and want the exit gates to open, you must hit the reader again to pay your final fare. You tap out.
The source gives an example of the technology failing, which happens all the time. Oliver says, "Oh no, I think the machine is broken." Zoe replies, "Really? Let me try to tap in. Oh yeah, it's not reading my card either." If you do not know the phrase tap in, you will struggle to explain to a station worker why the gate won't open for you.
Pocket word number 3 is crucial for spatial navigation.
Transfer.
Transfer.
This word is all about movement.
Yes. In the context of public transportation, a transfer is the act of changing from one vehicle to another to continue a single, continuous journey. You are moving your physical body from line A to line B.
And it is vital to know this word because very rarely does one train take you exactly where you want to go. Let's say you are looking at a map, trying to get to the airport. You point at a train and ask a worker, "Does this train go directly to the airport?" The source has the worker reply, "No, you have to transfer at Union Station."
If you do not understand the word transfer in that sentence, you are in serious trouble.
Why?
Because you will sit on that first train, it will reach the end of the line, and then it will start driving back in the opposite direction. You must understand that a transfer means your current vehicle's job is done, and you must walk across a platform to board a completely different vehicle to finish your mission.
Okay, pocket word number 4 is 2 words that strike fear into the hearts of everyone. Rush hour.
It is the most dreaded phrase in the English transit vocabulary.
Yeah.
And linguistically, it is deeply ironic.
Explain the irony of rush hour.
It is called rush hour because it is the specific time of day when everyone in the city is rushing. They're rushing to get to their office desks, or they're desperately rushing to get home to their families. The intent is speed. But because millions of people are all attempting to rush at the exact same moment, the system clogs. Traffic stops completely, trains are delayed. The irony is that during rush hour, absolutely no one is rushing anywhere. You are barely moving.
It is a total standstill. The source notes that rush hour usually happens twice a day, early morning around 8 a.m. and late afternoon around 5:00 p.m. And knowing this pocket word is a secret weapon for tourists.
It really is.
The source gives this example. Oliver asks, "Should we take the subway now?" Zoe checks her watch and says, "It's 5:30 p.m. It's rush hour, so it's going to be packed. Let's wait a bit."
That is profound travel advice wrapped in a vocabulary lesson. If you are on vacation, you do not need to participate in the misery of rush hour.
No, you don't.
You can use that vocabulary word to plan your day. When you see it as 5000 p.m., you say, rush hour. You go sit in a cafe, you have a nice pastry, and you let the locals fight it out on the trains. Once rush hour ends, you travel in peace.
I love doing that. Just grab a coffee and wait it out. Okay, our final pocket word, number 5, is route.
Route. This word can be slightly tricky for learners because it is easily confused with a very similar word, road.
What is the fundamental difference between a road and a route?
Think of it in terms of physical reality versus conceptual reality. The road is the physical concrete poured onto the dirt. It is the asphalt. It is a permanent physical object.
Right.
A route is the invisible, pre-planned conceptual path that a vehicle takes as it drives over those roads. A bus doesn't own the road, but it follows a specific numbered route.
And routes can change while roads stay the same. The source gives a perfect example of why this matters. Zoe panics on a bus. She looks out the window, doesn't recognize the buildings, and says, I think we missed our stop. Oliver calmly checks his phone map and says, no, we're okay. This bus just takes a different route on weekends.
City planners frequently change bus routes. Because of weekend farmers markets or construction or parades, the city will draw a new invisible path for the bus.
The bus changes its route.
Yes. It will still get you to your final destination, but it is taking different roads to get there. Understanding that a route is flexible prevents a massive amount of panic.
So we have our 5 pocket words securely in our pockets: commute, tap in, tap out, transfer, rush hour, route. You could practically navigate an entire city using just those 5 concepts.
You have the foundational blocks. But now we must refine how you use them. We need to smooth out the edges of your grammar.
Exactly. The Barking English source has a brilliant segment called Smooth It Out. We want to make sure you do not sound like you are reading from a rigid, literal translation app. We want you to sound natural, like someone who has comfortably navigated these systems for years.
We're going for natural flow.
Let's look at 3 very common, slightly clunky mistakes that learners make and explore why they happen and how to fix them.
Analyzing errors is often more instructive than just memorizing rules because it reveals the underlying logic of a language.
Mistake number 1. A student translates an idea directly from their native language and says, I want to take down from the bus. Now, when I hear this, I know what they mean, but I have to admit I laugh a little bit because of how Oliver describes it in the source material.
It's a mechanic joke.
Yes. Oliver says that when you say take down from the bus, the mental image it creates for a native speaker is that you have brought a mechanic's toolbox with you, and you are literally unbolting the seats and taking the tires off the vehicle. You are physically dismantling the bus.
It is a very funny, very literal image. The structural problem here is the phrase take down. English relies heavily on what we call phrasal verbs, especially when dealing with transportation.
What exactly is a phrasal verb?
A phrasal verb is a verb combined with a preposition like take plus down, and they have highly specific, immovable rules.
So what are the correct prepositions for a bus?
In English, transit vehicles are categorized by whether you step up onto a platform or step down into a container.
Up onto a platform, down into a container.
Large public transit vehicles where you can stand up and walk around like buses, trains, trams, and airplanes, we treat them like floating platforms. Right. Therefore, the preposition is on or off.
So the smooth upgrade is?
I want to get off the bus. And to enter, you get on the bus.
Get on, get off. It is a simple binary. But wait, what if I'm getting into a small taxi cab? I can't stand up in a taxi.
Exactly. A taxi or a personal car is treated as a container. You physically lower yourself into it. Therefore, the prepositions change. You get in a car and you get out of a car.
But for public transit, stick to the rule. You get on and off the big vehicles.
Perfect.
Okay, let's look at mistake number 2. Imagine a learner standing at that kiosk we talked about earlier. They want to know the price, so they ask, how many money is a ticket?
How many money? This is perhaps the most common mistake for beginners. It's entirely understandable, but it immediately marks you as a novice.
Why does it sound so clunky? We count money all the time. Why can't I ask how many?
This requires us to dive into the grammatical philosophy of English nouns. English strictly divides the world into 2 categories. Countable and uncountable.
Okay, break that down.
If you can point to an object and count it with whole numbers 1, 2, 3, it is countable. You can count coins. 1 coin, 2 coins. You can count dollar bills. $1, $2.
Right.
If a noun is countable, you use the question word many. How many coins do you have?
Right. But I cannot count the word money.
Precisely. Money itself is a conceptual, uncountable mass. It represents the abstract idea of wealth. You cannot hold one money in your hand. You cannot say, I have 3 monies in my pocket.
That sounds completely wrong.
Because the word money represents an abstract mass, we must use the question word reserved for uncountable things. Much.
So if I use the word money, I cannot say many. I must say much.
Yes. The smooth, natural upgrade is simply, how much is a ticket? Or, if you prefer a slightly more complete sentence, how much does the ticket cost?
Notice how in how much is a ticket? The word money isn't even in the sentence.
It is entirely implied by the phrase how much.
How much is a ticket? It flows beautifully. It is so much smoother.
It really is.
All right, mistake number 3. You were standing on the platform, you look down the dark tunnel, and you turn to a local and ask, when is the time for the next train?
That's a fascinating one to analyze. Unlike how many money, the grammar in when is the time for the next train is technically perfect. All the rules are followed.
Yet, it still sounds incredibly clunky and unnatural to a native ear.
It does.
Why? If the grammar is perfect, what is the problem?
The problem goes back to our earlier discussion about the platform environment. Native speakers value speed and brevity. This sentence fails because it is entirely redundant. It repeats the exact same concept twice, wasting valuable time.
Where's the repetition?
Look at the first word, when. The question word when inherently and exclusively asks about time. It means at what time.
Right.
So if you say when, you've already established that time is the subject. If you immediately follow it by saying is the time for, you are saying at what time is the time for. You are duplicating the effort. It is inefficient.
Ah, I see. It is like saying, where is the location of the train? Where already means location, so we need to cut out the fat. We need to put it on a diet.
The expert advice for a smooth upgrade is ruthless simplicity. Strip away everything that isn't essential. The perfect native phrase is simply, when is the next train?
When is the next train? 5 words. Fast, simple, natural.
Or, the source gives one more variation if you want to emphasize the arrival. When does the next train arrive? Both are excellent. Both avoid the clunky redundancy.
By consciously fixing these 3 specific mistakes, forcing yourself to use get off instead of take down, mastering the uncountable how much, and ruthlessly shortening your questions to when is the next train, you instantly elevate the maturity of your spoken English.
You stop sounding like an app translating word for word, and you start sounding like someone who grasps the rhythm of the language.
We have built the vocabulary. We have smoothed out the grammar. Now it is time for the final exam. We are going to take all these tools and watch them perform under pressure.
Oh, I'm ready.
The source material ends with a fantastic real-world simulation, and we are going to act it out and break it down.
A practical stress test. Set the scene for us.
Okay, listener, I want you to imagine the environment. You are standing in a New York City subway station. It is loud. The trains are screeching against the tracks. There is a busker playing a saxophone nearby.
Very atmospheric.
In this role play, I am going to read the lines for Zoe, who is playing the part of a slightly lost, anxious tourist. And you, my friend, will read the lines for Oliver, who is playing the part of a friendly, fast-talking New York local.
Sounds fun.
The tourist's singular goal is to get to Times Square. Let's see how the conversation unfolds, and then we will analyze the mechanics. I will start. Excuse me. Sorry to bother you. Does this train go to Times Square?
Actually, no, you're on the wrong platform. This one goes uptown. You need to head downtown. Just go up the stairs and cross over. But honestly, it's rush hour right now, so the downtown trains are going to be packed.
Oh, no. How much is a ticket if I just take a bus instead? I already tapped in here, so I guess I lost that money.
Yeah, you'd have to pay again. So bus is $2.90, same as the subway, but I wouldn't do it. The bus route down 7th Avenue is pretty slow right now because of traffic. Just take the subway.
Okay, I'll stick with the subway. Do I have to transfer to get to Times Square from the downtown platform?
Nope. It's a straight shot. 3 stops. Just say, getting off, please. Nice and loud when you get there because it will be crowded.
Thank you so much.
It is a dense, highly realistic exchange. There is a lot of geography and transit logic embedded in those few lines. Let us analyze the progression.
First of all, the tourist approached the local perfectly. She started with the golden phrase, "excuse me," and immediately followed it with, "sorry to bother you." She established maximum politeness before asking anything.
And her question was flawless. Does this train go to Times Square? She didn't use the tuxedo sentence. She kept it short.
Her execution was perfect, but sadly, her geography was wrong. She committed a directional error. The local tells her, "this one goes uptown, you need to head downtown." This requires an understanding of how cities orient themselves.
Let's unpack uptown and downtown, because in New York, those words are literally life or death for your commute. New York, specifically Manhattan, is laid out on a grid system. It is very vertical. Uptown generally means you are traveling north, moving toward the higher numbered streets, like 86th Street or 125th Street. The numbers go up.
Okay, so up is north.
Yes. Downtown means you are traveling south, toward the lower numbers and the financial district. The tourist is standing on the northbound uptown platform, but Times Square is to the south.
The local gives her the physical solution. Go up the stairs and cross over. But then he drops a massive warning using one of our pocket words. He says, but honestly, it's rush hour right now, so the downtown trains are going to be packed.
The local is managing her expectations. He's doing her a huge favor. By identifying that it is rush hour, he is warning her that the physical conditions on the train are going to be uncomfortable. He is saying, you will get there, but you will be squished.
Hearing this warning, the tourist does what any sane person would do. She tries to find a way to avoid being squished. She considers an alternative mode of transport. She asks, how much is a ticket if I just take a bus instead? Notice she used the smooth, uncountable upgrade. How much? And then she laments, I already tapped in here, so I guess I lost that money.
She flawlessly uses the pocket word tapped in, and she correctly identifies a painful reality of many transit systems. The transfer penalty.
The transfer penalty, meaning they punish you financially for changing your mind.
Exactly. Because she already scanned her card at the turnstile, she tapped in the subway system, took her money. If she walks out of the subway station and gets on a bus, the bus system is a separate entity. It does not care that she just paid the subway. She will have to tap her card again and pay a second time.
The local confirms this. He says the bus is $2.90, the exact same price, but you have to pay it again. But then he gives her a piece of local wisdom that a map would never tell you. He advises against the bus using another pocket word. He says the bus route down 7th Avenue is pretty slow right now because of traffic.
The route. This highlights the fundamental difference between trains and buses. The subway might be packed with humans during rush hour, but its route is underground. It is a clear track.
No traffic underground.
Exactly. The bus route exists on the physical road, meaning it is subject to the chaos of cars and taxis. The local's doing the math for her. The subway is uncomfortable but fast. The bus is comfortable but agonizingly slow.
So the tourist accepts her fate. She chooses speed over comfort. But she asks one final critical check-in question using our vocabulary. Do I have to transfer to get to Times Square? She wants to know if she has to change trains.
And the local replies with a fantastic, highly visual idiom. He says, nope, it's a straight shot, 3 stops.
I love the phrase a stray shot. Where does that come from?
It derives from archery or marksmanship. When you fire an arrow at a target and there is no wind and nothing is blocking the path, the arrow flies in a perfectly straight, uninterrupted line to the bullseye. It is a straight shot.
That's a great image.
In transit, it means your journey requires 0 transfers, 0 detours, and 0 changes. You get on train A, and train A takes you directly to the bullseye.
It is the best news a lost tourist can hear. It's a straight shot. And then, the local's final piece of advice acts as a callback to our earlier lesson. He knows she's about to enter a packed rush hour train, so he arms her with a weapon. He says, just say, getting off, please, nice and loud when you get there.
He reinforces the exact, polite, but urgent phrase we discussed. He validates the barking English curriculum right there.
It really does. The interaction ends and the tourist confidently walks toward the downtown platform. Now, listener, I want to pull back and summarize why we just analyzed that role play in such detail. The grammar and the vocabulary are important, but the overarching lesson here is that if you find yourself confused in the transit jungle, the absolute best tool you have isn't your phone map. It is the people around you.
Human connection solves the problem faster than anything else.
The local in that role play solved her directional error, warned her about the crowds, saved her from wasting money on a slow bus, and gave her the exact idiom she needed to escape the train. All of that happened in about 45 seconds.
It's amazing how much information you can get if you just ask.
And it all happened because she had the courage to say, excuse me. There is no need to panic when you realize that locals generally enjoy helping tourists, provided you approach them politely and keep your questions brief.
That is the ultimate takeaway. Language is a bridge between two minds, designed to solve shared problems.
As we wrap up this massive deep dive, I want to leave you with a direct call to action. It is the exact homework assignment posed by Zoe and Oliver at the end of their source material. I want you to think about your own daily life. What is your favorite way to commute?
It is a deeply personal question because commuting dictates the rhythm of our lives.
Do you prefer the quiet, steady rhythm of the morning bus? Do you like the chaotic speed of the subway? Maybe you prefer the fresh air of walking or dodging traffic on a bicycle. I want you to practice right now. Try describing your own daily commute in English, out loud, to yourself in the mirror, using the pocket words we learned today. Build a sentence. My commute is. During rush hour, I usually.
It is a highly practical exercise. When you connect new, abstract vocabulary directly to your own personal, physical reality, your brain categorizes the information differently. It moves from short-term memorization to long-term acquisition. You own the words because they describe your life.
I highly recommend doing that. And looking ahead, the Barking English hosts teased their next topic, which honestly sounds just as stressful as getting on the wrong train. Next time, they are tackling the linguistic nightmare of checking into a foreign Airbnb.
Oh, that's a whole different type of jungle. Navigating confusing lockbox instructions, messaging invisible hosts, trying to figure out why the hot water heater isn't working.
It requires a completely unique set of vocabulary. We will definitely have to do a deep dive on that transcript when it drops. But before we sign off today, this raises an important question. We have spent an hour dissecting the precise words to use to avoid getting lost, to avoid getting on the wrong train, to avoid making clunky grammatical errors. We have essentially been studying how to be perfect.
We have. But drawing from the source's idea early on when they suggested that going the wrong way on the London Tube is a necessary rite of passage, I want to leave you with a final, slightly provocative thought to mull over.
Let's hear it.
I think we often trap ourselves in a very rigid mindset when learning a language. We mistakenly believe that true fluency is a state of absolute perfection. We believe that once we are fluent, we will never use a clunky phrase, we will perfectly understand every mumbled loudspeaker announcement, and we will never ever get lost on a subway again. But what if that definition of fluency is entirely backwards?
How so?
In a real, unpredictable world, perfection is a myth. You will get lost. A native speaker gets lost. You will accidentally get on an uptown train instead of a downtown train. You will tap the wrong card at the gate. If you define fluency as never making a mistake, you will always feel like a failure.
So what is true fluency then?
True fluency isn't about building a wall of perfection so you never get lost. True fluency is building the linguistic confidence to comfortably, politely ask a stranger for help and to find your way back once you inevitably do get lost. Fluency is not perfection. Fluency is resilience. It is the ability to recover from a mistake with a smile, a deep breath, and
Fluency is resilience. I absolutely love that. It takes so much of the pressure off. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be willing to try to communicate and to bounce back. Thank you so much for taking this deep dive with us today. Remember to keep practicing your English at your own pace, even if you are just lying down on the sofa. We will catch you next time.